What's up, everyone? My name is Dom. Welcome back to On-Chain Rust, where we talk about all things Rust and blockchain. Continuing with the Substrate theme, we're going to do the first tutorial today. Last time I did an overview of Substrate and a little bit about Polkadot, and today we're going to walk through the tutorial. And there's no coding in this tutorial, which is okay, because what it's going to do is it's going to show you how to set up your environment, how to run a Substrate node, how to run the front end that allows you to see what's going on the blockchain. We'll do a transaction so you can see what happens there, and then we'll wrap it up. So with all that said, let's get started. First thing you want to do is if you go to the Substrate website, substrate.io, there is a developers menu. Now, you can get there directly by clicking on this tutorials link. However, I'm just going to take a little detour here. We'll end up in the same spot, but I just want to recap something I covered last time, which is the 3 different ways that you can use Substrate. The first way is with Substrate Node, and that's what we'll be doing today. So we basically have a node template that we're going to run with some slight configuration. We also talked about Substrate Frame, which is what most developers will do. It's basically creating your own runtime using the Substrate framework. And then finally, we talked about Substrate Core, which is pretty much a way you can customize Substrate for your own needs. So let's go ahead and take a look at this tutorial here. So it says it takes about an hour. It probably will take you about that long. You know, we won't spend that long here because I've done a lot of these steps already, and we'll skip over that to save some time. So it talks about what a blockchain node is, you know, what the key components of that are. I talked about this last time, but real quick, it's storage, peer-to-peer networking, consensus capabilities, data handling capabilities for extrinsic information, and a runtime. So it also talks about what Substrate is and some prerequisites here. So depending on which OS flavor you have right now, I happen to be on Mac OS at this moment. So I've actually already run these commands, so I won't do that here, but you'll follow the steps for your OS. If you're on Windows, things are a little bit different. So I'll just go over here to the Windows instructions. They actually suggest, if you are on Windows, to use the Windows subsystem for Linux, and then you know, you can follow the instructions for the Ubuntu or Debian OS. So I think they do have instructions for running natively on Windows, but they give you this little warning here about that, and so you might want to consider that if you're running Windows. Okay, let's flip back to the tutorial. So the first thing is to install Rust in the Rust toolchain. So if you haven't installed Rust yet, you want to install Rust up first. And you can install that by running this command here. Then you can either open, after this completes, and you can either open up a new terminal window, or you can just source this env file that it creates to make sure all your paths and environmental variables and everything are all lined up. And once you do that, then you can run Rust up. And the first thing we want to do is, you know, configure our Rust toolchain to the latest stable version by default. And so that's what these 2 commands do. Well, this one, the first one sets it, and then you update that version. And so then for the runtime, we need WASM. So you can take the nightly release, and you can configure that here, and then add the WASM32 target. So this will allow you to build to WASM32 using Rust. And then finally, if you want to just double check which Rust version you have, and then what tool chains are configured and installed, you can do that. I'll just go ahead and paste those in here so you can see what that looks like. So my Rust compiler version is 1.61.0. And then I have the installed tool chains, which were described in the tutorial, and those are also the active tool chain here, which is the stable the stable release, and then again it shows me my Rust compiler. All right, so once you have all that set up, now you've got Rust installed, and you have WASM32 as an available target, your tool chain's all configured, now you're ready to go. So the first thing we want to do after that is to, first I should say, we're going to run a Substrate node. And so the first step of that is to clone the repository on GitHub for the Substrate node template. And so that's this instruction here. I've already done this. I'm actually already in that directory. And so once you've cloned that directory, you've cloned that repo, you want to cd into the directory. And then at that point, you want to check out the latest tag, okay? And so what you might see here is a warning that you're in a detached head state. If you do get that warning, don't worry about it. All that means is that, if you're in Git and you have different branches, when you check out a branch, the head is pointing to the latest commit in that branch. Well, we're checking out to a specific commit, and it's been tagged as latest. So when we do that, it says we have a detached head state because we are checking out to a specific commit, not to a branch that has already a list of commits that puts us at the head. So basically, don't worry about it. It's just saying like, hey, you are checked out on a commit, where the head is pointing to a commit, and it's just warning you about that, and it's fine. Okay, so now I'm checked out on that. You can see here that I'm checked out on this commit. If just as a side note, if you wanted to see what commit is associated with a particular tag, you can run this git rev list command. I pass this -n1 here, just saying give me one commit hash in the list. And so then you can just really quickly see that the first 7 characters of this hash match the hash that my head is pointing to right now. All right, cool. So that out of the way, the next step is to build this node template. So we want to run cargo build -- release. I'm not going to do that because it takes a long time. In fact, most of the time will be spent pulling down crates and doing the compilation. And when I ran this earlier, it pulled down about 565, I believe, crates, which took a long time. It took me about 25 minutes. So, and then on top of that, compiling. So I'm going to skip that here. But this is the command you would run. And when you pass this -- release into cargo build, we're basically saying don't include any of the optimizations. We're saying include all of the optimizations. So normally we would do in debug mode, it's going to include all this extra information. We're saying we don't need all that, just optimize it, allowing the compiler to optimize it. Okay, so once this is built, all right, you're going to see a binary here. In fact, it's about 52 megs on my machine, and this is the actual binary we'll run when we run the node. All right, so that takes care of this section of the tutorial. The next is to install the front-end template. The front-end template is a node site that uses React. So you want to make sure you have Node installed. And the first thing I do, because a lot of different projects will use different versions of Node, you probably want to have a Node version manager. A lot of people use NVM. I just started using Volta, which I've got up here. So if you go to volta.sh, it tells you how to install it. This allows you to install and manage Node versions as well as Yarn and other things. I haven't used it a whole lot. I just got started with it, but so far I like it. It's pretty nice. But I've used NVM for a long time, and that's nice too. And if you're accustomed to that, then you probably already have it installed. So anyway, we can check if we have Node installed, right? I do. I have Node 16.15.0, which I think that's the latest stable build right now. And then you can also check if you have Yarn installed. And I do. I have 3.1.1. Okay, cool. If you don't, you can use, here they suggest using npm install-g yarn. You can also use Volta to install Yarn if you have Volta installed. Okay, I've already cloned. The next step is to clone the repo. I've already done that, and I'm already CD'd into that directory, so we won't worry about that here. We'll just skip that. Again, you want to do git checkout latest. Okay, now here you see this warning here that I mentioned earlier. Again, don't sweat it. And then once that's all done, you're gonna run yarn install, and this is gonna install all the required JavaScript packages and whatnot that are required to run this, required to run the website. Okay, cool. So let's flip back over here to our node, to our Substrate Node template. So the next step of the tutorial is to actually start the blockchain node in Explorer. So I already got my terminal open, so I'm going to run this. So this runs that node template executable we built when we ran cargo build -- release. So it's going to run that, and we're going to pass it this dev flag. And what this dev flag does is it tells the node to run in developer mode, which has some predefined things for development chain, like accounts, keys, things of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. It's going to start logging out some things here, and then it's just going to kind of wait around, and it looks like it's going to be preparing some blocks and committing some blocks and those kinds of things. So while it's doing that, we can start and just want to point out here, it says if the number after finalize is increasing, your blockchain is producing new blocks and reaching consensus. So the next step is to run the website. So this Substrate front-end template. So I just switched to my other terminal that has that project. So I'm going to run yarn start. Okay, just gonna switch browsers here. You'll probably be running on Node 8000. It's telling me I have something already running on that. I'm sorry, port 8000. I already have something running on that port. So it just picked 8001, which is fine. Yours will probably say 8000. But anyway, this is what it looks like. So in this kind of overview information, it tells you that you're in development. This node is in development mode. This is the WebSocket it's listening on. There's some metadata here. So I think I covered this in the overview, but if I didn't, all the Substrate blockchains or blockchains built with the Substrate framework come with this metadata automatically. That's what that is here. It shows that we're on the current block is 34 and the finalized block is 32. You'll see these continuing to increment. And then it's got a bunch of accounts here, right? So it's got these names and addresses and then balances. And so let's go back to the tutorial real quick, because the next step it has you do is transfer funds from one account to another. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, but it really doesn't matter how much we do. We just have to do a minimum amount, but that's okay. So if we go back here, so you can see right now, this is looking at things from Alice, the context of Alice. This is Alice's balance. She's got a lot of money. And we want to transfer some funds over to Dave. So Dave has 0. You know, poor Dave's broke. So we're gonna give Dave some money. So we can go in here, we can pick Dave. It automatically fills in his address. You can see here they match 5DAA, 5DAA. Cool. I'm just going to paste in that amount here, and then I'm going to hit submit. Okay. So it says current transaction status is in block. If we look at these events, we can see that the transfer, this transfer happened here. It tells us, you know, from who to who and the amount. Sorry, this window is kind of small. Doing the best I can. And then this is Dave's account. So now Dave has this much more money. And I think these were events that happened before. But there we go. Let's flip back to the... let's flip back to the tutorial here. So yeah, it shows you the events that happened. The next step is you can go ahead and stop the node. So I'm gonna flip back over to my Substrate node. And the way you stop this is you just do Control-C and you're stopped. And that's it. Congratulations, you've made it through your first Substrate tutorial. You know, there wasn't any coding in this tutorial, and that's fine. The purpose of this tutorial is, again, to get you familiar with Substrate and running a node and then running the front end. And then also this is a prerequisite for the other tutorials that we'll be going through and making videos on. So it's good to get this one out of the way, get familiar with Substrate, get your feet wet a little bit, and learn a little bit in between. So that's all I got today. Thanks for joining me, and we'll do the next tutorial in the next video. Thanks.